If you feel like you've entered the twilight zone where nothing looks the same, but yet everything feels so familiar, you are in that in between space where you're not quite who you used to be, but you're definitely not who you're becoming. Friend, you are in transition. This is the space that I like to call the messy middle. And I don't think that this gets talked about enough because when you are in the messy middle, this transition space between who you were and who you're becoming, it is probably the most time that you spend anywhere on your journey. You will feel like a beginner, and then there's that awkward middle, and then you finally reach your goal and you cross the finish line. Well, the celebrations usually don't last that long. So you've spent so much time in transition. So today we're going to talk about why it feels so uncomfortable. I also want to talk to you about what I call the self-love crossroads. And then we're going to talk about how to actually maximize your time while you're in transition. The messy middle feels so uncomfortable because your old patterns, your old habits, they just don't really feel good anymore. And you're still in that process of trying to create new patterns and new habits. So while you're in that space where you haven't yet solidified what your new flow is going to be, but then the old flow ain't flowing, that's why it feels so uncomfortable. And the most uncomfortable, messy middle I ever experienced thus far in life was definitely my grief journey. When my granny passed, and shortly after that, my mom passed. They were the two most influential women in my life. So to experience both of those losses back to back, where just when I thought I was starting to even gain my footing again, is when my mom passed, and then that was it. It was curtains for your girl. It was a lights out. I was feeling so lost, like I just didn't even know who I was without my mom. And I had always been the pick yourself up by the bootstraps kind of person. So whenever adversity or challenges hit, that's what I would result to is okay, you're going to feel it. You're going to move through it and pick yourself up by your bootstraps because we got things to do. Well, all of those coping mechanisms, they weren't doing anything. The pick yourself up by the bootstraps, listen, they wouldn't have worked even if they were dipped in gold. There was no bootstraps to be picked up to do a thing with, okay? So I really had to learn new ways to cope, to manage my emotions, to process my emotions. I had to learn a completely new skill set in order to create this new normal that I had to build. And because all of the ways that I knew how to cope were not suitable to help me at all put my pieces back together, I had to get a grief counselor. And thank goodness for her. Because if it wasn't for her, I don't even know where I would be. So, having a grief counselor really made such a huge difference with really helping me to navigate that time and create new systems that could actually support me while I created this new normal. And let me just say for the record, new normal, oh my goodness, I hated it every time somebody would be like, you have to create a new normal. And I'd be like, because what is a new normal, right? Like you don't even know what that is or what it looks like, let alone how to create it. So if you ever find yourself in that space, they are correct. You do have to create a new normal, and you are really just figuring out what that is moment by moment. And it is possible to create a new. You just have to be willing to go through the discomfort to get there. And that is so much what this transition period is all about. It is about getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I think the first step to doing that is just accepting that it's going to be uncomfortable. You will experience discomfort, and accepting that and allowing it to be, allowing yourself to just be in it is probably the first biggest step that you can really take. It's just accepting that it is what it is, but also reminding yourself that it is temporary. It is not a permanent place. You will not live in this space forever. There will come a time when this season too will end and you will come out on the other side of it. So, I think that the saving grace is recognizing that it's temporary and this is not a place where you will spend the rest of your days. So, all of that to say, the messy middle, being in transition, we spend so much time here. And if we can accept the discomfort and allow ourselves to be in it, but not be of it, we can really get through that season and through that space and be so much better because of it. Now, I know that sometimes being in transition, it is something that you choose. Like you chose to reinvent yourself and go after a new career, or maybe you chose to get married or become a parent. Those are huge transitions. And even when it's a choice that you made, it was a decision that you made and you were happy to make it. That doesn't mean that you won't experience discomfort because that just comes with it. So, the biggest thing to take away from this period of time is just recognizing that you are in a space where you're learning to live differently and being okay with allowing yourself the space to feel your way through that, to just take it one step at a time and not try to rush yourself into feeling normal, whatever that is. If you can really just allow yourself the time and the space to feel your way through it, you take a lot of pressure off of yourself and you can even avoid a lot of frustration in the process because there is no time frame on how long you spend in the messy middle. So if you try to speed through it, it's like driving through fog and not being able to see 10 feet ahead of you and not knowing when that fog is actually going to lift. So you might as well drive safely and enjoy the journey as much as you possibly can. Now, let's get into the self love crossroads because we all come to that point along our journey where we committed to a big goal. Maybe for you, it was you decided that you wanted to reinvent yourself and go after a new career. Or maybe you decided that within the next year, you want to be engaged or start a family. And I feel like this is the time when the universe comes to check your temperature. This is the time when you get tested to see if you are really committed to what it is that you say that you want. So let's say you really want that relationship and you said, you know what, I want a happy, healthy, loyal, committed relationship. And the universe will test you. It will send you that late night text from your ex saying, hey, big head, just to see what you will do. It's like, are you going to reply or are you just going to leave it as seen as delivered? Like, are you just going to leave it and not respond? Or are you going to fall back into your old patterns? And I feel like it's so easy for us to fall into old patterns, especially when we're second guessing ourselves, when the self criticism is at an all time high because that negative Nelly, that inner voice that loves to talk down to you and tell you that you can't possibly have the relationship that you want. And it'll spread lies. It'll say things like all men cheat or you're going to be alone forever. It will definitely try to convince you that what you want isn't possible for you. But you are at a crossroads and you get to decide if you will fall back into old ways and old patterns, or if you will decide to do something new. Because remember, this is the space where you're learning to live differently. So instead of answering that, hey, big head text late at night, you might decide, you know what? I love myself too much to reply to this text message. I once seen someone say that they had an ex-boyfriend who cheated on them and she put the picture of the girl that he cheated on her with as his contact picture. So whenever he would call or text her, that girl's face would pop up in her phone and that helped her to not answer his phone calls or his text. Now, I am not here to say that that is the thing to do, but I'm also not here to say don't do it. To each his own. But I will give her an A plus for creativity. But what are some things that you can actually do for you that when the universe is really trying to test your gangster, how will you handle those moments? How will you still honor the commitment that you made, that declared that the desire that you have in your heart is what you really are going after this time? This is what you're really willing to be in alignment with. And that means not settling for less. It means not allowing the self criticism or the negative self talk to talk you into something that you have outgrown. So, this is the crossroads. This is your moment to really commit to what it is that you really say that you want. And let me just also say, this does not mean that you are going to get it right every single time. It doesn't mean that there might still be some old habits that are harder to decline than others. You know, you might easily like have no problem when you get that late night text. It might not even be a thing. You might even have them blocked so you don't even get the text. So there are things that you can do to set yourself up to win, but it is okay if you still fall or slide back down to the wayside. It is a process and it's not always perfect and it's not always on the incline. It is not always just you going up, up, and up. Sometimes it's some front, back, side to side. You know what I mean? So don't give yourself a hard time for that. That's normal. That is totally normal. The goal is the more times that you can choose to live differently, the more times that you can choose yourself, the more times that you can say, I love myself too much to go back. I love myself too much to allow that kind of behavior. I love myself too much to not choose me. The more that you do that, the further along your journey you get, and the more in alignment you get with who it is that you are becoming. So, when you're at those crossroads, recognize that that's just an opportunity for you to commit again, because commitment isn't just a one time thing. When you get married, it's not just that you are making this commitment one time before God, the universe, source, whom it is that you believe in. It is not that you are just making this commitment one time to your partner. Making this commitment is a commitment that is on an automatic renewal. And you will be renewing that thing as many a times as it needs to be renewed, especially if you in it forever. So just recognize that just because you make a decision to commit, you have to continue to recommit. It will require you to recommit at new levels as you go. So when you find yourself on those crossroads, be willing to show up as your best self and treat every opportunity that you receive like a new opportunity to commit again to the desires of your heart. Consistent throughout your transitions is definitely the goal. But remember, consistency is not about being perfect, because you're going to have your ebbs and flows. You will be successful during times and maybe some unsuccessful during some other times. That is completely normal. So don't beat yourself up when it happens. Just learn from it. And as you learn, apply that knowledge that you learn, because that is what helps to strengthen you as you go. If you can look at your transitions like a training ground, this is where you build up the muscle. This is where you practice. It's where you train and condition yourself to become the person that you're ultimately striving to become. So, this space is really your testing ground. So treat it like an experiment. Try new things to see how to form the new habits that you're really working towards growing into. I would say for me right now, it's me doing these videos. I'm building up my muscle to show up on camera, to express my thoughts, to coach, to teach. It's to get better with my communication. It's to get better with how I train and teach. It's all of these things. It's me doing these videos with very little editing, just because if I give myself room to edit these videos, I won't be posting as consistently. So I have to eliminate the barriers for myself as much as I possibly can. Now, listen, if you stick with me, I guarantee you we'll get to a place where these videos get better, the quality gets better, my message gets better, it gets more clear, it gets more concise. And I really love that you're here with me. And, one of these days we're going to be like, hey, remember that time? Started from the bottom, now we here. Alexa, cue Drake. But this is my training ground. This is where I'm putting in the reps. This is where I'm practicing and I'm getting better. So you can do this too in the space that you're in, where you are in the middle of a transition from one version of yourself into a new version of yourself. I have to figure out what my new statement is going to be, because I always used to say, I'm not good at video. Well, now that I'm practicing, that's not true. I'm getting better. I'm getting better every day. And I'm getting stronger every day. And that's what you have to remind yourself of as well. As you're in the middle of transition and this is your training ground, this is you learning, this is you getting better, this is you growing stronger. So, really treat this as your space to build up the muscle, to put in the reps towards who it is that you're working to become. Because when you treat this like a space to train and you are conditioning yourself to have more self love, to have more self trust, to have the level of confidence that you really desire to have. This is where we practice. This is where we put in the reps. This is where we do the work. And the beautiful thing is, we're not doing it alone. This is really the space where you are building those new experiences that you will pull from later. The reason that that negative Nelly is so loud, the reason that negative self talk seems to have the megaphone is just because it doesn't yet have enough material that's positive to pull from. It's just pulling from all of the negative experiences. And our brain has its own filter. And a lot of times we tend to see more of the negative than we do the positive. So while you are being consistent in this new transition, this is where you have to celebrate your wins. You have to give yourself new experiences to pull from. And I see this so many times with the women that I support. You have got to celebrate yourself. Big wins, small wins. Once again, we are size inclusive around here. I don't care if it's a baby win. I don't care if it's a huge, massive win. You have got to celebrate your wins. That celebration is what roots things in your body. It teaches your nervous system that you can be successful and you have evidence of your success. And the next time that that negative Nelly shows up and says, you're going to be alone forever, you're going to have some positive experiences that say otherwise. That you're going to say, you know what? I've been out on some dates and it looks promising. You know what I mean? I'm having some fun while I'm dating. You're going to be able to have things positive to combat that negative Nelly to say, you know what? You're not right here. I do have some lived experiences. If you are going out for a new job or paving a way into a new career path and you're reinventing yourself, celebrate your small, major, any type of win that you are having, you have to celebrate it. Because when you can celebrate your wins, you are showing yourself that you do have what it takes to reach your goals. You do have what it takes to have all of your heart's desires. So, really take this time to recognize where you are winning because you're not just out here catching L's left and right. And even if you are, turn those L's, all them losses, turn them into lessons, and then you never win, you never lose. So make sure that you are celebrating yourself along your journey. That is what's going to sustain you. That's what's going to help you keep building momentum and keep pulling you and propelling you forward. The messy middle is exactly why momentum matters way more than motivation. This is not a season for you to rush through. This is the season to stay with yourself. You stay with yourself by speaking positively to yourself about yourself. When the negative Nelly comes in, you say, that's enough of that, and you let this positive self talk take over. Staying with yourself means not settling for less or settling for almost, because remember, even Brandy said almost doesn't count. I'm sorry, tonight I am all about the musical references. But this is really the time to not leave yourself behind. This is the time to support and celebrate yourself because you really are building yourself up to be who it is that you are striving to become. One of the best ways that you can really support yourself through this season is through encouragement. And that's why I spoke so much about having that positive self talk. Because if there is one person who needs your encouragement now more than ever, it is you. You need to support yourself by encouraging yourself. If you are anything like how I used to be my own worst critic. And I could tear myself down better than anybody, friend. Okay. And that season is behind me. And it is behind me for good because I choose encouragement over myself more than anything else. So I invite you to really encourage yourself throughout your transitions because you need it now more than ever. Whatever pace you are moving at, you are okay. You don't have to rush yourself through this season. You don't have any specific timelines that you have to meet. You are okay to take this day by day, step by step, and even moment by moment. You are okay and you will get exactly where you need to be in exactly the right divine timing. Always trust that. If you're new here, I'm Letitia, and I help women just like you connect to the best of yourself. So if you are new, welcome, welcome. This channel is for women who are tired of overthinking and struggling with their growth and instead want to create real self trust, confidence, and momentum, all built on the foundation of self love. And I love connecting with you here in these videos. So if this one really stuck out to you and tugged at your heartstrings, drop me a comment. I'd love to connect with you there. And I will see you in the next video.